that time of the year.
Yeah.
Yesterday I went somewhere and then I saw a Christmas tree and I was like, oh, okay.
It's there already, huh? We're there already.
We're there already.
And of course, Christmas comes with a lot of celebrations and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a time where we feast, and we spend time with family and loved ones.
Right.
In the midst of all of that, there's a lot of alcohol.
Yep.
Is that why you decided we talk about alcohol today?
Oh, yes. So today I want us to discuss alcohol because it's part of our social fabric. It's part of the way we interact. So for good reasons, we use alcohol during the Christmas period. But then there are dangers.
But why alcohol? We could have talked about onion, ginger, or precase or something. Why alcohol?
But because alcohol is such an important aspect of the way we socialize. It brings a lot of fun. It helps us do a lot of things. Look, everything we do in our society, you have a base of alcohol in there. Not onions, not ginger, nothing. So if you want to make merry, throw a party. Kwame, I don't think you can throw a party without alcohol. Can you?
Why not? Why not? I think we can.
If I can, you have to save me.
The church party we've been doing at church party, Moonsro,
do they give wine for communion in the church? The wine is what we are going to talk about today.
But is it the communion one we are talking about?
Or it's just wine. It's just communion. It's just wine.
By the way, you singled out alcohol. I'm like, there's
no,
water.
It is the central.
I've talked about water
for merrymaking.
Things. So many other things.
Probably too many party about water. The baby say, okay, which brand of water are you serving before you come to the party? No, I don't know. Is that something to drink?
Okay.
Then the moment the drink comes in, what was the first miracle performed by Jesus Christ?
They said he turned water into wine.
The thing, it shows up everywhere. I'm telling you.
But there was water before the wine. Why don't you talk? Let's talk about. Or you leave the wine.
But the water, it was there from Genesis. Even said that for so alcohol has a special place in the minds of a lot of people.
Okay.
And because of the way it is used, because of the way it forms part of our society, and we're not going to talk about it like it's a bad thing. I don't think we can live without.
Now they can't even say shit.
Yeah, like, exactly. We can
fight for here. What are you talking about?
Me, I'll fight with myself small before I leave the studio. So it is important, but I just want. I mean, if you talk to our gallant officers at the MTTD, they will tell you that this is the period they worry about the most. Why? Because driving under the influence is such a major headache during the festive period.
Right.
So it's the festive period. There's going to be a lot of merrymaking. We're going to have fun. And when we're having fun, definitely alcohol comes into the mix. So I think as part of our responsibilities to our audience, we need to share a little bit about alcohol and also let people know what the dangers, what the limits, and the responsible use of alcohol during this period. And that is why we're going to talk about it.
Absolutely. I like that. So let's go.
Right. So good afternoon to all our listeners, and it's good to be here another Wednesday. So Kwame, we've already said the preamble for today. But when we talk about alcohol, what are we talking about? Technically, then there are different types of alcohol. And I want to start from there.
Okay.
We're going to do a two-part series. So next week we're going to continue with this and probably even a third part.
Wow.
Oh yes. I mean, this thing is very important too. So Kwame, there's a lot of ins and outs to it, and there will be lots of questions there. Phillips Brigade, they are already almost typing. We haven't even started a conversation. I know they are typing. So I'm already giving them heads up. Right. So when we talk about alcohol, we are actually referring to a particular type of alcohol called ethanol. So Kwame, JHS biology, there's methanol.
Yeah.
Then there's ethanol. And then there's something they call laboratory alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. There's ethylene glycol. There are different types of alcohols. But commonly, when we say alcohol, then we are referring to the drinkable alcohol, which is ethanol. But since we don't want to confuse people, ethanol equals alcohol. The reason why I bring in the other types of alcohol is that sometimes people fall on the other types of alcohol deliberately.
You're serious?
Because they can't have access to the drinkable one, and it leaves them with very disastrous consequences. Other times, accidentally, they ingest the other forms of alcohol accidentally. So, Kwame, there have been news reports in parts of the world where people drank alcohol brewed in the backyard, locally brewed. The form that we call akpeteshi. If you look at that distillation process for making akpeteshi, the instruments in most farms and small villages are so crude. That distillation process will leave you with different fractions of alcohol, including the ethanol, which is the drinkable one. But the methanol one also sometimes shows up in the distillate, what comes out. And that can cause instant blindness.
Oh, wow.
The methanol. So if you accidentally or deliberately ingest methanol instead of ethanol, then you may go blind.
Wow.
As one of the disastrous outcomes. And these are all fractions that come out of that distillation process. So it's very, very important that when we take any alcohol which is being sold on the market, we look at the label and then we make sure it is ethanol. That we are. So for purposes of this conversation or this discussion, anytime I mention alcohol, I mean ethanol. And if I mention ethanol at any point, I mean alcohol. But I think we'll stick to the alcohol type. Second thing I want to talk about is that when we talk about an alcoholic beverage, let me drop the word beverage. I remember one of my teachers lambasting us when we said beverage as students. I was like, beverage, they say tea, ni milone, don't bring it. Alcohol is not, we don't joke with alcohol for you to call it a beverage, so let's call it an alcoholic drink. Well, I mean, if you take any alcoholic drink in a bottle, we always see some numbers written on the bottle. And typically the numbers come in percentages. Right? So it's a way of representing the amount of ethanol, the drinkable alcohol, in that whole drink.
Okay. So
not that entire drink is the alcohol. So that's why we call it an alcoholic drink. There are other things in there, and then there is the ethanol.
Oh, I see.
Right. So, for example, you find 10% V/V, volume by volume. You find a number, then you see the percentage sign, and then you would find V/V. So volume. So the whole bottle has a certain volume. So if I buy a wine bottle, maybe it's 1,000 milliliters or 1 liter. So that's the entire volume. Then of that entire volume, how much of it is alcohol? How much of it is ethanol? So if you take it and it is 9%, then 9% volume by volume means that of that entire volume, if you calculate 9% of that 1 liter, then that is the amount of ethanol in the drink.
Oh, okay.
Until no, not just say alcohol ne doso. So if I take a 9% drink, 1 liter, 9%, and you take 20%, then you have consumed per that volume, that same volume, you've consumed more.
And it's a bottle no na meja quarter woman, say meja alcohol no.
What alcohol no. So if it is 1,000 and then a quarter, that means you've left 250 volume. Yeah. So we'll calculate the 9% or 10% of that 250.
Maybe I might be at 7%. So
there be percentage. Yes. In truth, yes, you've consumed a certain amount of it.
7%.
No, but you see, whatever amount you take, it is that same percentage. You keep that percentage.
Dog, don't mind me, I'm being
Right. So it's one point of education that I want to put across today, that if you look at those numbers, it's very important. That is why sometimes somebody will look at it and say, hey, there be 30% mean to me. Because then you are going to consume a lot more alcohol than one with, say, 5% or 8% or 10%. But sometimes too, there's an expression called proof of the drink. So sometimes you hear in the British they say it is 50% proof. What does that mean? Because some people might have come across it. But there's a very interesting history to this whole thing. Many years ago in the British Navy, the sailors were remunerated, in addition to their money, they were remunerated with rum.
Okay.
They used to call it grog. Right. So it got to a point the sailors felt that the captains wanted to cheat them. So Omusaka ram na normal wooden so they dilute it so that they can get bigger volumes to distribute among the sailors. The sailors caught onto it, and therefore they went to the captains and demanded proof that the thing is undiluted, it is pure.
Yeah.
You know what they did? They will pour a piece of a small amount of the grog or the rum, and then they'll pour it onto gunpowder, black gunpowder, and then they'll light it. If it explodes, it means there's 100% proof that it contains 50% alcohol.
Okay.
So that was their proof.
Yeah.
I've seen this proof thing at work before. I was involved in some oil palm plantation somewhere in the Agona East district some time back. So I used to go there, and it was oil palm plantation. So the old palm trees, when they fell them and then they try and get the palm wine out of it, they distill the palm wine and then they make akpeteshi, the local alcohol, right there on the farm.
Yeah.
And you know how they were checking for the proof of the distillate that this one it has good enough. They will light it, and it has to give you a blue flame.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's our version of the proof.
Yeah.
So for those who buy drinks in the UK, for example, then you see this proof thing.
Yeah.
Represented. Proof means 50% in the United Kingdom. So generally we go with the percentage thing. Right. Kwame, everybody has watched this movie, Hangover.
Yeah.
I think what's that funny guy's name? The guy who did a lot of comedies in the past. Everybody used to watch his comedies.
Which of them? Mr. Bean or
No. Hollywood guy, in the American guy, very funny guy.
Black?
No, white guy. Very funny. But he was Jack. Is it Kerry?
Oh, Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah, the mask.
The mask. I think when you take him out of the way, I think this is the most hilarious. The hangover thing.
Yes.
It's the most hilarious thing. Why do people get hangover? So I think most people are familiar with hangover. Now I want to address that particular thing of alcohol, hangover. Right. So Kwame, remember I said the alcoholic drink. It is not the whole thing that is ethanol. There's a certain percentage of it, a certain volume. Then the rest are made up of other things. Those other things give the drink its characteristic features, the color. So those who like their brandy and then their whiskey, so they just look at the color and it is inviting. Right. The aroma of the drink, for example, the taste. All these things are not determined by the ethanol, but they are determined by the additives that go with it, and we call these additives the congeners. Congeners in a drink, right? They are responsible for the hangover. Yes. That's why you take certain types of alcoholic drinks, you may end up with a hangover, and others not so much. And those who are into it, will tell you, papa. Some papa. Okay. So headaches is one of the commonest things people experience as a hangover. Right. Now, let's talk about the classification of alcoholic drinks. Pam, do you want to help us here? Or should I call Philip?
Yeah, I mean, those are the experts.
They are the experts.
If you want to talk about,
When you share
exercise and things.
they are frail.
But alcohol, I mean, I don't.
And you may
and then the crank come in tea
I can tea I better than the one connection size and mass piece. I want to ethanol, PP. Right. So when we talk about an alcoholic drink, what are we talking about? Well, I mean, there are 3 or 4 main classifications. Beer. So the beers. I'm going to make my first surprising statement. And when we talk about the beers, everybody in Ghana thinks about 2 brands. But then there are so many other things. I don't think I'm permitted to talk about brands here. But beer drink 2 brands, and then we think that those are beers. But then there are other types of drinks. One that is very common that people like, very dark, and people don't know that is also a type of beer.
Oh,
so
okay.
Beers are a group.
Michael Power now.
The year 1859. No, pharmacy shops. I say Mujedru. Right, so the beers are the first category of alcoholic beverages that I want to talk about. And Kwame, it's one of the beers are one of the oldest drinks in the world. 3rd most commonly consumed drink after water and tea. So if we talk about drinks in general, water is a drink. Tea. But if you take away water and tea, the most commonly consumed drink globally are beers. The Germans.
There is no beer. That is why we be drinking.
The beer. There are songs about beer. There are everything about festivals about beers, and all of that exists all over the world. Well, beer is produced by brewing and fermenting starches. All right, so cereal grains. So that's how we produce beers. And typically they contain ethanol up to about 5%. So you find 5% V/V, volume by volume, then those are the beers. So it's not a particular brand that we call a beer. This is a category of alcoholic drink.
Okay.
And if the ethanol content is up to 5%, then we'll call it a beer. Wines are the second category, produced from the fermentation of fruits. So the first one will come from starches, the cereals. So wines come from fruits. So if you go to different parts of Europe, Kwame, you are very familiar with South Africa. You know, they have a lot of high quality vineyards.
Yeah.
You know, and they produce wine there. Wines have played important roles in many religions, all religions actually. You know, from the ancient Egyptians to the Eucharist among Christians, wines are very, very common. And I think the first document or the earliest documentation of wine goes back 6,000 BCE. 6,000 years before Christ, wines were being produced. The ethanol concentration here is between 6 or 5 after, okay, so 6 to 12% typically. So if you have an alcoholic drink and the ethanol concentration is between 6 and 12%, then we would say that that is a wine. Kwame. See, when I say we should talk about alcohol, it's Christmas. When we say the job no flow. Right, good. Let's talk about distilled beverages, the spirits. Kwame, here I want to call Philip in to come. This category of drinks, alcoholic drinks, they have so many names. So in Ghana, obviously it's going to Blue Kiosk.
Hey,
I don't know why they call it Blue Kiosk. Of all the names, but it has so many names. So please, if you are listening, let us know all the AKAs for the spirits.
that's right.
So again, they are produced from fermented sugars. So sugar cane, palm wine, commonly what we use. The American is a apeteshi. It's a classic example of a spirit. I don't know why they call it a spirit. I don't know whether it puts you in the spirit or but then someone you people drink it, you know, the contortions on their faces. I don't know. Yeah, back to myself. They crowd I won't know. Anyway, so these are fermented sugars from sugarcane, palm wine, etc. And then they are distilled. It goes through a distillation process, and these will typically contain ethanol 40% plus.
That's right.
My
My God.
Yes. That's why it puts you in the spirit. I feel you haven't done this somewhere. So locally, appetizer is what we know, but then the foreign brands, the whiskeys, the vodka, and all of them, only 2 hour. Then, come on,
I know.
we don't have a song for it. I don't need job no doors.
We have whiskey lullaby, but
the fourth category is the compounded beverages. Here we are talking about the liqueurs, the cocktails, and then what we call the fortified wines, the port wine. I remember one of my bosses in the UK. He doesn't joke with his port wine at all. So these are the 4 different categories of alcoholic drinks that I want people to be aware of, because you're going to make a choice during this festive season. You're going to choose either to drink a beer, a wine, a compounded beverage like a liqueur, or you're going to drink a spirit, and you have to understand how much ethanol that you're consuming.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I think we'll break when I talk about the standard drink.
Okay.
So let's end with that, and then next week we'll do a part 2.
Okay.
So most of the time I get asked this question. So, Doc, is it safe for us to drink alcohol? A very difficult question. So I ask the question a different way and then I answer it. Okay, I say that there is a recommended safe limit depending on who you are. There is a medically recommended safe limit for alcohol. Because for me, this is my disclaimer. I say, if as of today you don't drink, there is no good reason to start. But then if you drink too, then really it's not a problem, so long as you are sticking to the recommended safe limits.
Okay.
So it depends on who you are. If you are a female, a pregnant female, then there is no safe limit for alcohol consumption for all pregnant females. Most females in our part of the world don't know until many weeks into the pregnancy that they are pregnant. That's the experience that I've had as a physician for 18 years almost. They come and then they are pregnant. So my recommendation is that all females in the reproductive age group, meaning females who can get pregnant, you are risking it if you keep drinking, because by the time you find out that you are pregnant, there's already alcohol on board if you drink. And then there's a very deadly syndrome we call the fetal alcohol syndrome, where you leave your child with serious brain injuries and serious physical injuries as well. So that's for the females. Then if you are a non-pregnant female and you are outside of the reproductive age group, but you are above 18, then your standard drink will be not more than 14 units in a week.
14 units.
14 units.
14 bottles of alcohol.
There be missing units.
Sorry.
A standard drink or 14 units. So 14 standard drinks. And then for adult males, then we say you are allowed up to 21 units.
In a day.
Kwame, in a week.
Sorry. Okay.
In a week. And by this, I don't mean you can accumulate all of it and do it Friday night. You are not allowed to accumulate the 21 units and do all of it Friday night or Saturday night. We are saying in a week. So, Kwame, what is a standard drink? So, or a unit of alcohol? It depends on what you are taking, which of the 3 categories that you are taking. So, if you take a tot glass of a spirit, Kwame, next week we will get a tot glass in here, and then those who are watching on Facebook as we are streaming can do that. A tot glass of spirits type of alcohol is 1 unit.
Okay.
If you take a standard wine glass, which is 120 mils, standard wine glass of wine, that is also 1 unit.
Okay.
And then if you take 330 mils, which is the can, beer can, the can, that's 130 mils, 330 mils, or the mini. The mini bottle, that's 330 mils. That is also 1 unit. So if I take my 1 tot of apeteshi and you take your 1 mini beer, And then Philip also takes the wine glass, standard wine glass, 120. We've all taken one unit of alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very important. We all know how to measure this.
Okay.
So that you know your limits.
I think this is enough information for now.
Right.
We'll consider it. We'll think about it very well. We'll discuss at our meeting.
The caucus.
Yes. And then revert next week when you come back with more information.
You bring the speaker to come and see.
No, Doc, thank you so much. I mean, this is some very good information, and I want us to fully expand it, at least ahead of the festivities, for people to take notes. So thank you so much. For those who want to reach out to you, how do they do that? Right.
So the number is 0501 477 340. If you want to send us a WhatsApp, it's 0501 477 340, and someone would speak to you.
Dr. Yao Osaf is the CEO